CreditDominick ReuterReutersDemocratic leaders in Washington have been criticized for lacking a message that voters can embrace. They have been disparaged as too old and too wedded to the zero-sum politics of this polarized era. So we looked outside the nation's capital to ask leaders in states and cities to offer their vision for reconnecting with voters who have left the party and propelled Republicans into control of the White House and Congress. They offered a blend of specific policies, like focusing on clean energy jobs of the future, and general principles, highlighting the success of past Democratic presidents who showed that the government can be an instrument for positive and lasting change. All of them agreed that the party needed to focus on matters that are urgent and relevant in the lives of ordinary Americans, rather than engaging in daily firefights with Republicans and President Trump. Here is what they had to say. Some of the interviews were edited for brevity and clarity. Credited S. Warren, Associated Press. Gov. J. Inslee of Washington. There are 3 pillars of our future success. 1. We have found that a very consistent first step is talking about jobs and economic growth. Consistently focusing on jobs with a capital J and a plan to deliver jobs will serve us well. Second, you cannot overstate the appetite, desire and thirst for some sense of unity, and just rationality, as opposed to the divisiveness and chaos that this president has brought. There is such a strong distaste for the madness coming out of the White House that simply showing a sense of rationality is very appealing to people right now. The third issue is that the states are the place where Donald Trump cannot stop us. He cannot stop our clean energy jobs programs. He cannot stop our ways to finance college for the middle class. He cannot stop us because the American system is based on the United States. It's true in clean energy in my state, where those jobs are growing 17 times faster than the overall economy right now. And we need to demonstrate job creation in small and rural communities across the country. We need a national policy that will focus on those areas that have been deindustrialized. We are going to be able to show job creation across the state in urban and rural areas. The Democratic Party can and should be the party to offer those solutions. You can go back and just say we are going to bring back the jobs that disappeared when the tech revolution occurred. You've got to focus on the jobs of today and tomorrow. Policy matters. Credit Scott Olson. Getty Image. Shmer Your Rama Manual of Chicago. Democrats need to channel our anger, not be defined by it. We need to be clear about what we stand for, not just rail against what we oppose. Our message must make a connection with the challenges Americans are facing, including making debt-free college a reality, expanding access to affordable health care and creating good-paying jobs. Democrats must present a credible plan to address America's problems that meets voters where they are. The laws of political gravity already ensure that the 2018 election will be a referendum on President Trump and the Republicans in Congress. Thus far, that record has been abysmal, with one high-profile failure on top of another. As bad as the policies Republicans are pursuing would be for middle-class Americans, their inability to pass them and actually govern the country, despite unified control, only exacerbates their vulnerability and opens the door for Democrats. It is up to us, then, to walk through that door by doing what our most effective leaders have always done, articulating an aspirational, attainable agenda for the future while presenting a clear contrast with the other side. Credit Colin Young Wolfen Vision. Via Associated Press. Attorney General Xavier Becerra of California. I don't think our message should be any different than it was when FDR was president or JFK was president. If you work hard and play by the rules, we've got your back. I think FDR made it very clear when he established Social Security. He went after the banks, he created the unemployment insurance system. LBJ created Medicare. JFK created the Peace Corps. Democrats created the GI Bill of Rights. All of those things demonstrated if you just do it the right way, we will have your back. It's focused squarely on the folks in the middle, folks who aspire to be in the middle. It reminds me of how so much of what FDR, JFK and LBJ did really focused on my parents, on how a construction worker and a clerical worker in my mom and dad's time could go on to buy a house and send 4 kids to college and live in retirement in dignity. But I think most people will tell you, they don't believe it, they don't feel like we've got your back as leaders. And that's where Democratic leaders need to come forward and say, no, we do have your back. I try to explain to folks the pain and the anxiety that a lot of formerly middle-class families in the Rust Belt states, for example, are feeling these days, and that explains why so many of them voted for Donald Trump for president. That's the same pain and anxiety my parents went through. They are Latino immigrants. They had that working-class sense of optimism that they will do better for their kids, and their kids will do better. In my case, there was no doubt. A lot of folks in the Rust Belt states are saying, hey, we don't see our kids and grandkids exceeding our expectations, or their own expectations. As a son of immigrants, I am an optimist because it runs in my DNA. But if you've got 2 or 3 generations now, where before you used to have that union job at GM, or even that coal mining job, you just start to get skeptical. Credit Stephen Senny, Associated Press Gov. Gina Raimondo of Rhode Island. The economy is changing, and Americans are worried about keeping up and getting ahead. Not long ago, if you had a high school diploma, you could get a good job. Generations of families worked in factories building things. Today, it's nearly impossible to find a good job out of high school, and the cost of a college education is on the rise. People who don't have a college degree know it's harder than ever to get the skills needed to get good work. And a lot of people have decided we don't understand their struggles. Democrats are committed to making sure everyone who is willing to work hard has a fair shot at a good job. The economy is changing, yes. We can't turn back the clock. But we can make sure there's a place for everyone in the new economy. Not as many people will work in the type of factory my father worked in when I was a kid, but we have a real opportunity to expand advanced manufacturing in America. There's still a crucial role for people who have skills. Elected leaders must focus on getting our people trained for the new advanced manufacturing jobs we're creating. These jobs require the same work ethic and determination that made America the most powerful economy in the world. This is our promise to Americans. We will create more jobs, and give everyone the training and education they need to get the good jobs we're creating. That's what we're doing in Rhode Island. Credit David Goldman, Associated Press. Mayor Kasem Reed of Atlanta. We'll find ourselves on different ground today, but it's not entirely new ground. History shows there have been many times in our country when there was a struggle over who will have the influence to define the future. The Democratic Party needs to demonstrate, once again, that we're fighting for a future where we can be the best version of ourselves. We need to regain the energy, the unity and the confidence that have carried us in the past, because our passion never fails. The best version of America is worth the effort. A big, bold, inclusive vision for America is the key. As President John F. Kennedy once said, things don't just happen. They are made to happen. I believe the Democratic Party needs to say loudly and clearly that the future we will make is one where you can be who you are, love who you love and pursue your dreams, where you can have a fair shot and a fair shake, regardless of your place of birth, your parents' income, the color of your skin, your gender or religion. We envision a future where every American can achieve their highest potential without limits. These ideals are under attack at this very moment, but there are some fights which must be fought, and the Democratic Party will be at the forefront. Credit Joshua Lott for the New York Times. Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, IND. To me, we are making this way too complicated. The message to me is that we are the party that is out to support and protect ordinary people going about their lives. So I think as a party, we've got to return the center of gravity to lived experience, and there are some indications that it is happening. If you look at the most important policy, which is holding off ACA repeal, what really turned the tide there wasn't the cleverness of Democratic office holders, it was ordinary people telling their stories in town halls. The beauty of that was it was an antidote to alternative facts. You can't lie to somebody about the circumstances of their own life. We have the message that we are sticking up for ordinary people as they go through their lives. The challenge is to convey that message in a way that gets through some of the false choices. Do we maintain our commitment to racial justice, or do we appeal to the white working class? One think that's a terrible question. Who would NT want to do both? Democrats' policy goals should be to make sure that everybody continues to have access to healthcare by whatever it takes. Making sure that large institutions, especially banks and corporations, can't rip you off. We have a responsibility to make sure everybody has a shot and has a way to fit in. I talk about it a lot in terms of freedom because Democrats have to get back in the habit of talking about freedom. Your freedom very much depends on whether you can start a business and know you have access to healthcare, whether you can marry someone you love or sue a bank that is cheating you. That's our freedom agenda. In Washington, all the protagonists are political characters. It's gotten to be as if the only people who matter are politicians. It's all about the individual as characters. What's going on with Roy Moore? What's going on with Nancy Pelosi? What's going on with Steve Bannon? And there's all these people in places like Indiana who say, "What about me? I've never met Steve Bannon." And we've allowed the conversation because it's mesmerizing, it's fascinating, it's Game of Thrones, but people need to see themselves as the main characters in the story we are telling.